Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another C++ programming tutorial. Today I was going to talk to you about preprocessor commands and syntax in general for your main program. So, start off, I'm going to actually delete this, and if anyone can predict what's going to happen, it's going to crash. Well, it won't compile. It'll say, there's no member cout, so we're trying to access the namespace std and use the function cout, or the variable cout, I'm sorry. It doesn't work. But if we put this in, it's including essentially a library. It's saying every single thing, every function, every variable, every namespace from this file, I want you to take it and I want you to copy it into this. So there's probably a variable in IOStream called cout that is updated every loop that basically puts it onto the console. And so the same thing would happen if I took out string, which we don't actually need here. It'll actually work just fine in this case. But you can see, and I'll put it back just because string is usually nice to have. Oops. So you'll notice, we haven't really talked about this yet, but if I put this underneath here, just take a moment and guess what's going to happen when I hit compile. I don't expect very many people to get this because I haven't yet talked about this yet. If we hit run, it'll again say cout is not a member of std. But why? We included it down here. How? How does that make sense? Alright, I will tell you why, and I'll use a small demonstration. And I'm just creating another function. Actually, you know what, I'll make this a bit simpler. We'll just do that, and then I'll come and do void print std string text, and then I'll do std cout text. Now, it'll again say that it's undefined, but if I come down and I do print, and I type in hello world, then we hit run, and it actually works. Why is that? It's actually for the same reason why I put print above this here. In order for you to use functions, I'm going to go into greater depth here much later, but I'm just trying to demonstrate a small point. You have to declare that something exists before you write it in C++. The compiler basically works from top down. If it comes down here and it sees, oh, std cout hello world, what the heck is that? I have no idea what cout is. And then it sees IOStream is included here. It won't remember that it said cout was up here. However, if I use cout down below it, it'll work just fine. And that's essentially how it works. Now I'll get into that much later on. That's not super important for now. So we'll include IOStream up here again. There are a few other things that you can do with preprocessor commands that I'll just demonstrate real fast. Up till this point, we've only been using include, and generally, this is all you will be using. But there are a few others that you can use. You can effectively use define. In this syntax, you basically put define and then a number name. I can write text, and then I can write hello world. And then remember, preprocessor commands do not get a semicolon at the end. That's a small syntax thing that I forgot to explain. But if I substitute text from here into here, and I hit run, you'll see it actually prints out hello world just like normal. And that's basically because I used the define functionality to assign this to this value. And of course there are a few more preprocessor commands we can use. We can use if def, and then you can put in the thing that you're defining, and then it has to have this and that. So we're saying basically if this is defined, this you're barely ever going to use, but I think you should know how it works at the very least. Then I can do define text2 no hello world. Alright, so now if I put in text2 here, in the preprocessor commands it'll say, alright, I'm going to define text as hello world. If text is defined, I'm going to define text2 as no hello world, and then it's going to end the if statement. You have to do that in preprocessor commands. And then stdc out text2. If we run this, just take a guess, no hello world. But what happens if we go ahead and we lop this piece of code off? And then we hit run. Text2 is undefined, but I just defined it right here. Well, essentially, it was going down and it says, if def text. Alright, text is not defined. So then we will skip this entirely. And then it didn't know what text2 was. I don't even have to assign a value to text here either. I didn't mention that either. I can just do define text, and then that works just fine. So that's the gist of how preprocessor commands work. Now I'm going to talk about the syntax of our actual main program. Right here, what this is called a function. It follows this basic syntax. Return type. This can be void, basically any variable type, which I'll go over next tutorial. But for this point, it's an integer because we're returning a error code, essentially. And then you have to have open and close brackets. This essentially defines, let's rewrite this again. Int main, parentheses, these have to be here. You can't get away with not having those. Open brackets and close brackets. This is essentially opening up a new stack, and I'll explain what that is later as well. But this is extremely important. This is telling C++, alright, the contents of this main function is going to be included in here. So then, return 0, you have to, because it's returning value, and it's expecting that as a return. So if you don't return anything, it can be quite confusing. And then we can access another function from stdlib.h, which is system, which takes in a const char pointer command, and that's where we get the pause from. And whenever we're calling a function, what we did here was we typed in the name of the function, parentheses, surrounding it, and the arguments inside. And this, I'll be going into more depth on functions later, but I'm just trying to get the basic syntax down. And then we put in our char pointer for the command, and then it works perfectly. And the final thing in this program, basically by the time you've written this program, you will have a solid understanding of the syntax of C++. There are a few things that you can still learn, such as classes, but we will go into that later. It's not important for now. You can use using namespace std, and then cout will access std because it's using the namespace, so it'll automatically access it because we typed using cout. And then these are what you call insert into stream operators. And I'm not sure if I already went over this, but they will take the text from over here and insert it into the stream. And then you can insert more of it into the stream with endl. And again, it's accessing std and then endl. And then we run this, and because we typed all of our syntax correctly, it should work just fine. So what happens if we put a space? That doesn't work. Why is that? I thought C++ was one of those languages where you can just put spaces everywhere and it's perfectly fine. Well, unfortunately, no, it's not, because there are certain operators that the compiler looks for, and this space that is not one of them, okay? So I got rid of the using it namespace std, and then we have these errors. See how it was undefined? So I'll put 2 colons, follow std followed by 2 colons, and that will access the std library, giving us use of these 2 variables. And then another thing, what happens if I put a space here between those 2 colons? We hit run, and anyone guess? Yep, it crashed. Here's why. When I'm using these 2 colons, I'm essentially accessing, there's 2 reasons to use colons. Either you're accessing the values or classes in a namespace, or you are accessing static functions in a static class. So in this case, we're using it to access a namespace. But you can't, it will recognize this, I'm pretty sure. It does, yeah. But you can think of this as an operator that the compiler looks for whenever you're running your code. Alright, it sees the double colons, and it's like, alright, now I need to look for a static, I need to either look for a static item or a namespace item. And it doesn't recognize this because it's not the same as just double that. But I can do this, and that's just fine. I can place spaces wherever I want. I can come in, I can tab things out. I know that looks gross, but it works. You can't do that with the operators. I know it's not really an operator, but you can think of it as one. Alright, I think that will conclude our tutorial for today. I really hope you learned, and I hope I'll see you all next week. Thank you very much.